So you finish Solo Leveling and you're wondering what to read next. Well, this is the top 10 list for you because we're going to go through the top 10 manhwa that you should be reading after you read Solo Leveling. Starting at number 10, we have Return of the Disaster Class Hero, which is a manhwa that was the spiritual successor in a way to Solo Leveling because it was released following it from the same studio, which was supposed to be basically the one that would pick up all the hype from Solo Leveling and keep running with it. Didn't quite turn out that way, but it's still a great manhwa all the same, with a protagonist that is insanely overpowered and gives you a lot of those stand-alone, I can fight against the army kind of vibes that you get from Solo Leveling. That being said, a lot of the aspects of Solo Leveling are not present in this manhwa, but if you're into that strong hero that's able to take on everyone in front of them and look pretty cool while he's doing it, this one might be the one for you. At number 9, we have Leveling with the Gods. Leveling with the Gods is a manhwa about a character that's sent back in time to fix, well, the incapacity of his team to defeat the final enemies in their world. So he goes and climbs this tower once again. And when I say tower, this is a crazy tower with a lot of different races, aspects, gods, and different things like that. The art style is very unique, and a character once again that stands leaps and bounds and strengths above his peers. He's supposed to be building some allies in this story, but honestly, it hasn't been much the case, so this is a bit of a solo adventure as well. So you might be getting some of those strong characters with good itemization that you might have seen in Solo Leveling, particularly in the earlier parts of the story. At number 8, we have Boundless Necromancer. This is a bit of a weird one for me to put on here, but I felt like I wanted to, of a character that gets pulled into kind of a world that's not his. He was a very weak protagonist at the start of the story, similar to how Sung Jin-woo just couldn't do anything during those first few chapters. Similarly, he gets put into a situation that gives him this crazy opportunity to power up. The necromancer part of this is a bit questionable because I don't know how much actual necromancy is taking place by what we would consider necromancy, meaning raising an army of the dead. But there is a thing of souls where he's able to use them to power up, which is an interesting concept, as well as, again, this is a super solo adventure of a character fighting against new challenges and new enemies on different floors of a world. But there's also basically kind of similarly to Solo Leveling, there's this secret pocket dimension that only a few people can go into to climb this tower like Solo Leveling had. But on the flip side, there is this larger world that also has hunters and things like that. So some similarities there. At number 7 is SSS Class Revival Hunter. This is an interesting manhwa, and I'm putting it here because of the ranking systems of these different hunters. It's going to be a little different, but the art is really good in this manhwa, as well as having a really good, interesting concept of a character that can steal the powers of others through specific context things. In the first couple of chapters, he steals the power of this fire guy that allows him basically to resurrect, and he is able to resurrect along the way, which allows him to learn new abilities, get new things. Eventually he gains like a spiritual guide in a way, but it's a great manhwa with really cool power steps, and eventually there's a necromancer element to this series, so do keep that in mind. So if you want to keep checking that out, it is worth checking out. At number 6 is Second Life Rancor. The reason this one's here is 1, tower climbing, 2, a character that is just always leaps and bounds stronger than those around him. He's this silent protagonist that says only what he has to say, gives the beat down on people that look at him the wrong way, and there's just this vibe of similarity in that. The art I don't think stands up to Solo Leveling, but I will say from a pure action, tons of little power-ups that he gets along the way, really stronger than all his peers. There's some similarities there that are worth checking out, and it's a good manhwa to keep track of as it's pretty long running at this point. At number 5, we have Lone Necromancer. This one's a favorite of mine, and I don't think anyone would put it on this list necessarily as something to read after Solo Leveling, but I have to say it's worth checking out for that purpose, because the necromancy elements of this one are pretty darn good. There is an army being created around me. Kill the Hero would also be similar in this to having that skeleton army that can follow around. They don't have the same personality as Sung Jin-woo's summons do, which are something I think kind of unique to Solo Leveling, which I think is something people generally appreciate. Beru, Igris, and all that are really cool for that reason. But from the necromancy side, this one is a really cool manhwa to check out, and again, a good amount of chapters to sunk your teeth into right away. At number 4 is Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, I will say, is probably significantly better than Solo Leveling. overall, just because from a story perspective, there's a much stronger story here. The world building is much deeper than Solo Leveling is. I don't think it has the pacing or the same speed of action that there is in Solo Leveling, which is one of the things that makes Solo Leveling so good. Such great pacing, such great action, always on top of things. But the visuals are on point. The world building is insane. And from people that have read the light novel, this manhwa will probably go down as one of the best of all time. So do check that one out. I think it's, if there's one to get into, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is definitely a must. At number 3 is The World After the Fall, which is funny that I put it at number 3 considering I think Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is a significantly better manhwa. But right after Solo Leveling, what you're probably going into is like, you saw this insane art of Solo Leveling that looks fantastic. These crazy panels of action that look great. A really strong protagonist that is just so much stronger than everyone around him. And The World After the Fall / The World After the End is exactly that. It is brutal, it is action-packed, and from a pacing perspective, it's not quite as strong on the pacing as Solo Leveling is, where each chapter kind of has this cliffhanger ending that makes you want to read the next chapter right away. But I do think that it's worth checking out simply for the visuals and the pure action that exists in this series, which I think is fantastic. At number 2 is Solo Max Level Newbie, which is probably the manhwa that is the closest to Solo Leveling in a lot of its different ways. The protagonist even kind of looks like him a little bit. This one came out while Solo Leveling was still kind of around, so it's been running for quite some time now. But the art palette is very much on that purple side, similar to Solo Leveling. The art is beautiful similarly. I think it's more interesting from an itemization perspective than Solo Leveling is. And the action is really good. The pacing is pretty strong in this manhwa. Actually, it's pretty always going kind of a manhwa. Different vibe because, again, this is a game becoming a reality and a character going up a tower to basically save humanity, and also like he knows so many things about the game, so he's extremely strong in this situation. So it allows the protagonist to just be extremely good at finding secrets and items and allies and things like that. While I will still say this is largely a solo adventure, he actually does have allies that are useful in this manhwa, which I think is a bit better than what we get in Solo Leveling, and I appreciate that as an ad. The side characters aren't completely useless, though compared to the main character, they kind of are. There's still some characters that just cannot stand up to our protagonist, and honestly, no one in the world, to my knowledge at this time, can, other than characters in the tower itself. But Solo Max Level Newbie, definitely worth checking out. Last but not least is Legend of the Northern Blade. This is nothing like Solo Leveling. I have to put it on here because Solo Leveling is a master at action and a master at beautiful visuals during those action situations, and the pacing of the fights. They're just non-stop, accelerated, and that's something you get out of Legend of Northern Blade. When those swords start clashing, it's insanity, it's beautiful, it's insane. The art of the series is not for everyone. This does not look like Solo Leveling by any means. But the reason I say if you get into it, you will still get that level of hype that you got from Solo Leveling as you get into these fights. While they aren't as frequent as they are in Solo Leveling, because Solo Leveling was just good at like tossing you these action scenes every like 2-3 chapters, I will still say it is phenomenal. Probably one of the greatest manhwa of all time in my opinion, and definitely worth you checking out after you finish Solo Leveling. If you like this video, I have tons of other stuff on this channel that you might also like, so check out one of my other top 10s, like, subscribe to the channel, and if nothing else, have a great day.